is there anyone here or online who would like to speak at the public open forum? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 7, which is a discussion of the commercial pet and small animal uses study and housekeeping amendments, pages 1 through 55 in our packets, and in addition, pages 1 through 5. So, who takes that?
Oh, that would be me, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Frank, you're on.
Excellent. Good evening, Planning Commission members and City Council. So tonight I'm going to talk about the commercial small animal pet uses study and my report. And this has been a long time coming, I know. So I think then we'll just go right ahead and jump in. First I'll talk about my report and just kind of, I know we've done a lot of review in the last few weeks, so I'll try and shore it up a little bit. So just to start, for some context, the city currently allows small animal indoor boarding, grooming, or daycare in several of the commercial zoning districts. The city also allows those uses as ancillary use for veterinary animal hospitals or clinics. Animal training is not currently allowed in any district. And this study came about in December of 2021. There were some zoning code revisions at the time. And at the same time, a dog training business made an inquiry, and the Planning Commission at that time did not feel it was a fit. And because of that, the City Council, at the end of December 2021, adopted an ordinance calling for a moratorium on these commercial small animal uses, and a resolution was called for a study, which is what I produced this week, and I hope everyone had a chance to read it, but if not, I'll go through it a little bit more. So before the moratorium in the summer of 2021, there was a business, Muddy Paws, that applied for a conditional use permit. Now, originally, Muddy Paws was considered a commercial dog kennel. So it was issued in 2012, an interim use permit, and as a kennel, it's licensed by the Board of Animal Health. But there was a new owner, and they invested some money in the property and applied for a conditional use permit. And during the process of the conditional use permit, it became clear that there were some additional conditions that were necessary because there was no state licensing for doggy daycare type businesses. So this was another concern that was thought about going into the study. Sorry, so I can look at everyone. So in the study, the policy questions that were to be examined were: which commercial districts should these uses be located? What permitting and license control should be implemented governing commercial small animal / pet uses that provide enough oversight and regulation of the uses? And what land use regulations should be implemented for potential nuisances concerning the health, safety, and welfare of the community? And some of the things that we found, or I found, was with the interim use permits, originally being kind of the methodology of how these businesses were regulated, we had a change in 2021 with the conditional use permit. And that ended up starting to expose maybe some issues with that sort of process as opposed to the interim use permit. And, you know, they weren't immediately evident when the initial CUP was issued. And because the city now is responsible for being licensing and ensuring the safety and welfare of the animals. That wasn't something initially expected. And with that, we we don't have the capacity at this time with the current workload to actually be able to enforce these conditions effectively. There would have to be someone else hired, either on staff or as a consultant, and that is one reason why we're moving in the direction that we are. In addition to that, the zoning districts that most of these uses are allowed aren't are not very so with commercial small animal uses, it's a very low density use. It requires a lot of land. Commercial kennels or doggy daycare or training, they require lots of space for animals to move around, get about, get exercise. And with that, it in a way kind of conflicts with the city's comprehensive plan. The I-35 commercial district is supposed to be a few different things. Near the interchange, it calls for density. In the south part of the city, near the border, it's supposed to be more light industrial. And in between that, it's supposed to be more large-scale type uses like big box stores and things like that. And with that, we're moving towards some changes that would maybe rectify kind of some of the issues that we've run into so far. So going into the proposed changes, first, we're gonna create definitions that separate out these uses. So dog training, small animal training, boarding, daycare, grooming, other animal establishments. So those are all gonna be different, defined as different uses. And in addition to that, we propose not allowing in the commercial industrial areas boarding, daycare, and training. However, we do propose that we retain these uses as ancillary uses for veterinary animal hospitals or clinics, which is more or less the status quo. And at this time, and with these changes, this would require amendments to the code. And we've drafted some amendments, or I'm sorry, Dean has drafted some amendments. I don't want to take credit for your work. So as you can see in your packet, starting on page 8. And with that, Dean, I will throw it over to you. Talk a little bit about the ordinances.
Good evening. There are a couple of people here I've never met. I'm Dean Johnson. I've been a consulting planner in Columbus since 1996, I think. Getting old, isn't it, Elizabeth? In any event, it's nice to be back. I kind of came in on this a little bit late, and I know you've been doing other moratoria and reaching conclusions that involve ordinance amendments. And Frank asked me to take a summary of all the information you've done and put it into the form of an ordinance. What I'd like to do is walk through this, and I think, as Frank said, in your packet, it's pages 8 through 11. I just want to do a real quick overview of what it is, and then I'm going to come back and start over. There are 7 sections in this, and they're all labeled as section with a Roman numeral. So on the very first page, section 1 of this ordinance is a number of definitions. Several are new and one is amended. Section 2 on the next page is actually a housekeeping amendment. And One of the issues for anybody that does zoning administration or city planning, anytime you have an ordinance, whether it was adopted a month ago or 10 years ago, when you look at things, you find errors. You just do. I can't remember what your city code is, maybe 230 pages, something like that, the zoning ordinance itself.
More than that, but yeah.
Yeah, and the zoning ordinance itself is over 100 pages, and then when you take the other sign ordinance, whatever, it is impossible to create these flawlessly. And so one of the things that isn't an error, but it really does include housekeeping, and again, this is section number 2. Since the time of the most previous ordinance approval, we created a new commercial industrial light district. And so this reference is on the very beginning of chapter 7A, section 7A 600, the zoning map, and it simply adds this to the list of all the other zoning districts. It's like a table of contents, if you will. Section 3 are the physical district amendments. Frank alluded to the fact that many of your commercial industrial districts do currently allow grooming clinics, a variety of different boarding or daycare options. And this is the meat of this ordinance and the meat of the conclusion of your moratorium study. It's the recommendations that basically limit this to animal clinics or grooming facilities. There's no training, there's no daycare, nothing, and I'll come back to that. On the next page is Roman numeral number 4. These are the other meat of the situation you presently have. And one of the handouts that you received today is now labeled 1 through 5 or 6. In any event, this is the entire section of the dog kennel provisions, 7A-809. And you'll see I have a very brief component of this, and it's labeled subsection B, which eliminates, if you look at what is now B and C in this ordinance, it simply identifies which districts may or may not allow commercial dog kennels and all of the rules and regulations. Replacing that is now proposed to read subsection B. It identifies the different zoning districts here, and it simply says that commercial dog kennels are not permitted in any of these. And that term is the basis of the previous language in this ordinance. And so if you were to think of 2 things that come out of this ordinance, the first are the district regulations themselves, and that identifies that you are still allowing animal clinics. The boarding is limited to patients. It's limited to overnight care. It's not a boarding facility. And then you would allow potentially grooming facilities. These are subject to your own opinions and decisions and recommendations. But the second is that there are no commercial kennels. There are going to be no other facilities, training, grooming, boarding, period, in any commercial district. And that seemed to be the consensus of direction leading up to this. I've been involved basically the last week, and so you can correct me whenever it is appropriate. But Section 4 is really the meat of this. It eliminates even the discussion or regulations regarding commercial kennels because they no longer exist. Section 5, the next section, is another housekeeping element, and that is specifically describing the veterinary hospitals, clinics, animal grooming facilities, and how the parking relates to that. There was no previous reference. Section 6 following is also housekeeping, and that's making changes to the landscaping performance standards, which have nothing to do with the dog kennels, but regarded some errors. As I looked at this ordinance in the last year or so, we have a mixed use, low density. It was never in this table, and now We also had two MUMs. We didn't have an MUH, which is the mixed-use high density. And so that's just a housekeeping correction. And then lastly, I added your new zoning district, commercial light. The last section, number 7, is just the typical adoption provision of this. So 7 different sections to accomplish a recommendation for the ultimate conclusion of the moratorium study, the report that Frank's assembled for you. Now I'd like to go back to the beginning and take any questions, comments on section 1, which are the definitions. I made one edit from the final list that Frank gave me last, whenever it was, Tuesday. And I have this where the term was inserted other than a residence, literally in all of these. And I don't know the background, but I do know, and our esteemed city attorney is here who's going to get involved eventually in discussions about home-based business or residential zone business. And what stood out in my mind, if that decision is not made, whether you would tolerate training, grooming, or daycare or other types of boarding facilities as a home-based business, I took that language out to leave the door open. So this section, these are in the beginning of your ordinance. If you go to court with somebody, the judge is going to look at these and they're going to say, well, this is what an animal establishment other is. And that really is going to guide everything. And I thought it was a little bit wordy, but I also thought it may diminish a future discussion you have, and you'd come back and strike that provision about other than a residence, if in fact you allowed any of these as a home-based business. You'd have to come and amend the ordinance again. So I took that out. The other change that seemed to be made was the use of the term commercial facility or service instead of calling it a place. Wherever these, what other cities these definitions may have been borrowed from, I think that clarification, a commercial facility or service, is a further clarification that it isn't a residence. And I would offer at the bottom of the page, I didn't really catch this until after I had sent this to the city last week, and that is in the existing definition you have for the veterinary animal hospital or clinic, I chose to keep that in there, but modified this to make it clear that yes, accessory retail sales is very common and that would be allowed. Patient grooming, whether it's clipping nails, cleaning ears, whatever that vets typically do would be allowed, but it makes it clear that any overnight accommodation is for patients. It's follow-up treatment and care. It's not dog boarding. And I crossed out that last sentence because that last phrase in your basic definition opened this up further to any boarding. So my point in bringing this up or highlighting it, we've used this term a commercial facility or service in every other definition. I didn't insert that. This reads, it is a place used for. I could change that or recommend, why don't we do them all the same, and it's a commercial facility or service used for such and such. If you're in agreement to that, I would make that change and include it in any final. Any questions about the definitions?
I would just wait to say I would support making them all consistent. I would make them all consistent as you suggested, so I would insert the commercial facility for place for the veterinary hospital.
I will do that.
So this is Sue. My question is about, and it kind of goes between section 1 and section maybe 3, because the first definition, animal boarding facility, I was trying to find where is in the rest of the ordinance, so that's why we would need the definition. And the only place I can see is under section 7A 683Q, small animal indoor boarding, grooming or daycare. So I was just trying to figure out where would the animal boarding facility fall?
Right now, as a part of your study, you made the distinction between all these different facilities instead of, referring to them more generally or generically as small animal uses or whatever. You've created terms for each of these so you can distinguish them. Doesn't mean you'll see it anywhere else in the ordinance.
Okay,
They're not allowed, they're not gonna be in there.
Okay.
But if they pop up at some time, you've now got all of these definitions in your ordinance. And again, I was well aware that the previous moratorium on the residential zone businesses is not finished. You're going to be doing something. And if in fact you find that it is appropriate to allow grooming, as an example, you've got a definition, but that's why I took out all the references to other than residential.
okay,
I don't want you to shoot yourself in the foot, otherwise you come back and pay either Megan or me
Right.
to rewrite this ordinance again. And so it's set up to where you may never see any other reference to animal boarding other than that it is clearly limited to an animal hospital as an accessory use for patients, if you will.
okay,
But otherwise, it may never show up. The other portion of section 7A 809 residential dog kennels, we didn't touch. We didn't make any changes. That's the basic category of all of the residential zone business permits for anybody that's got more than 4 dogs. They all have to have a kennel permit. And this goes back when, Elizabeth? 20 years? We started changing, you were doing annual licensing, which was not cost effective and didn't do anything in the community, and it became, okay, you can have up to 3 dogs, no registration, no license, no nothing, but now, if you have more than that, we create how many acres you gotta have to have so many, and then provisions if you are boarding, whatever other categories or activities might be allowed under the dog kennels, we did not change any of that. So those applications are the same. We took the rest of 7A 809 and simply said, there aren't any commercial dog kennels, period.
okay,
And so to answer your question in a very long way, you may not see these terms anymore in the ordinance. But if they do pop up as part of residential zone business that you think grooming is okay, you got it covered at least in terms of what it is.
okay.
And we distinguish between a training facility, a grooming, and a boarding, and a daycare now. And that makes a big difference. And you may not want any of them. I'm not promoting it. I'm just saying if they ended up as a potential home-based business, then you don't want to go back and change the ordinance again because we
Yep.
made other exclusions that you don't know you want now.
Okay, that was very helpful, thank you.
So,
Dean, I have one clarification. So in the section that Sue was referring to under Q, I do believe that should say January 1st, 2023.
I'm sorry, which Q?
Because I'm under section
page-
7A 683, because I think the intent was to allow Muddy Paws to be
Right.
legal conforming, and if you make it 2003, I'm not exactly sure what happened in
Right.
2003, so I'm pretty sure it should be
2023.
2023.
Instead of 2003. So that,
Oh, just the date.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You can make this effective on the date of their permit. You can pick any time you want, but yes, that's my fat fingers, okay.
I have a couple questions, if now is the time to ask them. So going back to some of the findings of facts, I think that, I heard you say, Frank, that a kennel is licensed by the Board of Animal Health, but they actually are not. Only impound facilities are. So kennels in the capacity of impounding dogs are licensed by the Board of Animal Health, but commercial boarding facilities are not. So I heard you say that as you were talking, and then I think in your some of there was one other place here where you had implied or put that the IUP for Muddy Paws had been licensed. I don't think it was. I think it was, I don't think we recognized as a city that that was our job and nothing, it didn't happen. So I think you should correct that just for the record because it wasn't licensed as far as I know. Is that right? Correct. It was not licensed. And just so you know, the Board of Animal Health only licenses kennels that do impounding, like a Humane Society or a shelter in that way. The other question that I had was related to the end, where under section 5B, did you want to include the animal establishment other in that list? I think we do.
Page are you on, Jen?
I'm on page 10. So in that section where it basically says that all of, kennels and boarding facilities and stuff are not allowed, I think we want to also include animal establishment others in that list.
So,
Does that make sense?
so on the first point, it sounds with the original Muddy Paws IUP and licensing, I'll double check, but if I'm assuming you are correct, so I will make that edit. And then just to make sure, you're referencing on page 10, section 7A 809, dog kennels? And you're saying to add other animal facility?
I'm on page 10, section, I guess it's 4B.
Yep. And then so it's referring to 7A 809.
Yeah.
And you would like other animal establishment?
Other, because that would, because you included all the other things that we had a definition for, but I'm pretty sure we don't want zoological parks, for all the reasons we don't want the other stuff. It's because we're not equipped to license them or make sure that the animals are well cared for. Does that make sense? You look kind of confused.
For just adding in this list, animal boarding facilities, animal daycare facilities, commercial dog kennels, and other animal establishments, do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yep, the same wording that you have in the definition 4G on page 8. You have animal establishment other. We talked about that, about, how out here you get people doing things like having little zoological parks and stuff in there. So I'm just thinking that we made it really clear here, rather than just saying if it's not listed as a permitted use or a conditional use, then it's not allowed. You're calling it out here that it's not allowed, so for as long as we're calling it out, we may as well call out the animal establishment other too.
Okay.
No problem with that?
Have you got that, Frank? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else have any additions or subtractions or questions or discussion?
I have a question if we're just generally
Sure.
over the whole study, because I was looking at your question number 3 that of the study, and it was talking about nuisances. And I didn't see where that was addressed anywhere. Did you?
Well, with the removal of the uses in these commercial districts,
That should eliminate the nuisances. That's what I mean, I kind of came to that conclusion, but I just wanted to make sure, because if we're not going to have any outdoor, I mean, if there's no commercial dog kennels, or even if there's something and they have animals outside for a period of time, that could be a noise nuisance to somebody, but there's not going to be anything like that.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
And the only other, this is Janet, the only other question I had was, you're allowing grooming, but I wasn't clear, is that our responsibility to license the grooming facilities, or is a license not required for grooming facilities?
So the state does not license grooming facilities.
Well, they don't license any of them, that's our problem.
Yeah.
But is it require, I mean, does the state delegate authority to the city to do that? It's like somebody has to do it, and guess what, city, you guys have to do it? I just don't know on grooming facilities if they have to be licensed. And if so, that would obviously fall to us.
Okay.
That's correct.
So do we know if they require licensing for grooming too?
They do not require licensing for grooming. So if grooming and licensure is something that the city desires, that would have to be a licensure program run by the city itself.
Okay. No, I don't desire it, I just don't want to ignore it if we're supposed to do it. Okay, good, thank you.
So this is Rob, and the question to the planners would be, so what we're doing here essentially by the 7A-809 is eliminating any future boarding kennels in the city of Columbus, other than Muddy Paws?
That is correct, in any commercial industrial district.
Yeah, I guess I'm not in favor in that, so.
So,
So the distinction again, so everybody is clear, animal hospitals, clinics, and grooming. The only boarding would be associated with the animal hospital itself.
Sure.
That is as a patient. So I'm not taking a position whether anybody wants this the way it was or should be, but that is the clarification. This eliminates the boarding, training, and other animal establishments. Thank you, because that's important too. And as the findings in Frank's summary conclude, we have very extensive land uses in an urban area that involve things like large dog runs and whatever. And it tends not to be the highest and best use of any urban property in most communities that I'm familiar with. A lot of cities, period, don't have dog kennels anywhere, not with residents or anything, just because they're different from Columbus. And you may make that decision that boarding and training is appropriate on 5-acre parcels or larger or whatever as residential zone property, but this clearly eliminates anything other than clinics and grooming in all of your commercial districts. So that's what you would be voting up or down, the way this is written.
so Rob, I mean, the big problem is the licensing part. So if the state says, if you allow these, you have to license them, which means you have to have an ability to go in there annually and ensure the health, safety, welfare of the animals, and we don't have anybody to do that. And our animal control person doesn't have the capacity to do that, because Frank has double-checked that with her. And so that's the problem. So if you say you're not in favor of it, it's like, how would we carry out that responsibility?
So you're saying the state is saying we cannot? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
The state is saying we're requiring it, but we're not doing it. Either the county or the city has to do it. Anoka County has already made it clear they're not doing it. So it would fall on us.
So what avenues, I guess, I can look into it myself, but what avenues does city of Blaine do with mountain dog boarding
They
over off
they
Radisson?
they probably have a person that they've hired and pay to go do that. And
Yeah,
that's,
I believe I looked into it, and it's the police officer that does it.
that could be.
So we use our police officer to do it.
It's not in their contract, and you'd be paying for it. I mean, we spent a year
I think we
talking
could do
about,
that.
huh?
I think we could do that.
You think we could ask the police if they could go to every kennel, boarding facility, whatever, and make sure, I mean, first of all, they have to have the expertise to do that, and that's usually, a person has an animal health degree at the minimum.
Sure.
And so how many cops do you know that have that?
How did Blaine's get it?
I don't know that that's how Blaine did it.
I looked into it. That's how they did it. I brought it up the last time with Muddy Paws.
Well, maybe you should ask them if they found a cop that has that background.
I will.
But that, I mean, that's the problem. The problem has been that we spent a year talking about whether or not we wanted to spend the money on hiring a compliance officer for our ordinances that we know that we have a full-time workload for. So to try to hire somebody to do this for a handful of businesses that may or may not come here, that makes no sense to me from a financial standpoint, especially when there's plenty of them around. It's not like there's a business need.
Sure,
And as,
that's your opinion.
and as Dean was saying, it's not the highest and best use of our limited land.
Okay.
So did you also check into what the cost would be? for
I did
an
not,
employee?
Barb, no.
Okay. So you're just giving us your opinion that we should have one?
Yeah, I'm warranted that, correct?
Yeah. But you should go further and see how much that would cost.
Sure, I'll do that for you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment. Just you, Rob. I haven't been out of police work for 10 years, but I don't ever remember training or anything like that. And maybe they have done it, you know, I wouldn't have any idea. I know that we don't, when I did work for a city, we tried to get out of everything. I mean, we have, you know, you're overloaded already.
Sure.
You gotta have first responder and all that. I don't know how you could do it, but it'd be interesting. I'd like to call down to Blaine and.
Yeah,
look into
no,
this.
when we were dealing through the thing with Muddy Paws, yeah, I'd reached out on that one specific, and I can look back in my paperwork on the file cabinet from that night and see what I can pull out on it. They had sent me a checklist, the city planner sent me some stuff on it and how they go about it, but they had one of their officers or deputies that did annual walkthroughs to license that facility, so I can look back on it. But, I mean, if it's not the will of the majority, it's not gonna go anywhere, right? But
Well, no, that's a good point.
I
mean,
feel
if
like
somebody does
we
it-
have some already. I mean, you got Nanduel's out on Broadway, you know, and we got several others that aren't even licensed, and as we come down with our compliance officer and he finds all these,
That-
we're gonna have to do something with them.
Well, I think
Just
the
gonna
only
run
one,
them out of
I think
town.
the only one we have commercially is Muddy Paws. I think Nanduel is still, isn't it still under residential, which we haven't discussed? We haven't discussed the residential zone. So, I mean, that's a whole separate topic, and I don't know where that's gonna
So
go.
just specific to commercial at this point, correct?
That's only commercial. And I think it was really important too, and I'm glad you guys put it in there. I mean, I do not want to make Muddy Paws legal nonconforming, so I'm glad we have that in there so that they don't run into any problems in the future with, you know, being outside of our ordinance.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, people go out of town on vacation, right? They gotta have places to utilize, so.
Are you sure that wasn't the fire department that was doing that?
No, that's specific, they told me the police department. Yep,
Oh.
I recall.
Interesting. So what's that name of that place off by the airport down there in Blaine?
Yeah, it's like Rocky Mountain.
Stone Mountain.
Something, Stone Mountain.
Stone Mountain.
I had my dog in there once, but I never really ever knew who licensed it or who did what. It's a good question,
I
though.
really hope I'm not misspeaking, so I apologize if I am, so.
Well, I mean, what we learned with the compliance officer, inspector, whichever term you choose to use, is that cities do it differently, and some cities do utilize their police force when they have their own police force, and they have a person that they have trained to do those sort of compliance checks, and so it's possible that Blaine has done that.
Yeah,
But we don't have our own police force, so we would be at the mercy of Anoka County Sheriff saying, yeah, we'll do that, and based on what I know, they don't have excess staff to take on extra duties, and it certainly isn't part of our current contract.
Well,
That's true. I don't know if you remember this, but in our neighborhood, we had 2 dogs that were barking next door from like 1 a.m. till 9 a.m., and we had called it 2 a.m. Sheriff's deputies came out at 9:30, and we went and talked to them, and it was a situation where somebody had just released these dogs in the neighborhood. And what the deputy told me is they would willingly take the dogs to the animal control that Columbus had, but they don't do anything with animals. Not the Sheriff's Department. That's all they do, is drop them off.
Yeah, like I say, I'll do my best to get that, try and regather that information. I'm trying to look through my email here, so.
Any other questions or discussion? So the next step is this will appear at our next city council meeting? Is that correct?
You're convened as the planning commission and council.
I'm sorry?
You're convened tonight as the council and planning commission.
So Elizabeth, you have some motions here. So you have a motion for the planning commission and a motion for the council. That's how you'd like us to proceed? So on the little half sheet of paper?
And we don't, do we have to have a public hearing about this?
Yes, we're sharing a microphone this evening. So yes, and within your motion packet, and I believe it's within there as well, is that we would seek the council to order a public hearing for this matter so that we could move forward with adoption of the ordinance as proposed and any other further comment regarding, potential changes.
All right, so when we vote on this, does just the planning commission vote on the planning commission motion?
That is correct.
And then the council votes on the council?
That's correct.
All right, so would anyone from the planning commission like to make the motion?
This is Barb. I move to recommend a study to the city council based on findings, fact, and recommendation of the commercial pet and small animal uses report dated March 1st, 2023.
Is there a second?
This is Lynn, I'll second.
So it's moved and seconded. Oops.
Did you say study?
Yes.
I thought we did the study. Is that right?
No.
We're ordering a study?
Recommendations of the
Of the
commercial
study-
pet and small animal uses report dated.
Report as revised and supplemented by your record this evening.
Thank you.
Is the motion that Barb has made.
So would
for the
someone
planning
from the
commission.
planning commission like to second that?
I'll second.
It's seconded. Is there any discussion or more questions?
Do we need to include the changes in the motion?
I slightly modified the motion.
Okay.
Apologies on the microphone end. So Barb made a motion to recommend the study to the city council based on the findings of fact and recommendations of the commercial pet and small animal uses report dated March 1st, 2023, subject to the revisions provided this evening and supplemented by the testimony provided by your city planner and by our contract city planner as well, and the record that you made tonight.
So that's your motion, Barb?
Yes.
I'll second.
I never would have known to say all that.
All right. So, planning commission members, everyone votes on this or just the PC?
Just the planning commission.
And I'll start right next to it.
Bethany, aye.
Am I voting on this?
Yes, you
Yeah.
are.
You are. Yes.
Ron, aye.
Lynn, aye.
Frank, aye.
Barb, aye.
All right, thank you very much. And then now we are seeking a city council motion, city council only voting on this, a move to accept a study based on findings of fact and approve recommendations for the commercial pet and small animal uses report dated March 1st of 2023 with revisions and supplemented by the public record and testimony that was provided this evening. I'm looking for a motion on that.
This is Janet. I move, so moved.
Is there a second?
This is Sue, I'll second.
So any other questions or discussions?
Yeah, so this is Rob, so it wouldn't make any sense for me to research that because we're putting it to a vote.
Well, you could bring your information to the public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
So it's moved and seconded. Anybody else have anything to add? If not, I'll call for the vote and I'll start with Sue.
Sue, aye.
Ron, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, nay.
And Jesse, aye.
Thank you. And our next motion is for the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission motion is, the Planning Commission moves to recommend a public hearing for draft ordinance 23 to be numbered, and ordinance amending Chapter 7A of the City of Columbus Code of Ordinances regulating animal facilities and housekeeping amendments to the City Council. And that is, of course, also subject to the minor amendments that were made at tonight's meeting.
I make a motion what she said.
Good job.
Is there a second
This is Barb. I'll
from the
second.
planning commission? Yep, okay, it's moved and seconded. Any other questions or discussion? Anyone? Then let's call for a planning commission vote.
Bethany, aye.
Ron, aye?
Lynn, I.
Frank, aye.
Barb, aye.
All right.
And lastly, we have a city council motion, a motion to call a public hearing for draft ordinance 23 to be numbered, an ordinance amending chapter 7A of the City of Columbus Code of Ordinances regulating animal facilities and housekeeping amendments to the city council based upon the amendments that you made this evening.
This is Janet, so moved.
This is Sue, I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. Any other questions or discussion?
I got a question. Is this public hearing going to be at the council?
This public hearing will be at the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
We'll all start with Sue.
Sue, aye.
Ron, aye?
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
And Jesse, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. We'll take care of that. And when will that planning commission hearing be? The next meeting or after that?
I thought we said we were shooting for April 5th, but I know now we have 2 applications for that too, so.
So right now, we're looking at April 5th
Good.
for a public hearing. There'll actually be 2 public hearings that night.
Probably 3, because 2 applications and then the ordinance.
A busy night, 3 public hearings for that night.
What's the third one, Frank?
We'll have 2 applications that evening and then
And
this ordinance.
Yeah.
You guys will be earning your keep that night.
Oh, yeah.
Pack a lunch. All right. On to number 8, discussion of the Fall Fest Roundtable. Are we ready?
Yes. Oh, let me shut off my phone. Thought I did. Elizabeth, do you want to give the intro to this, or do you want me to launch in?
I can, I'll give a short intro.
Thank you.
During our organizational meeting, there was a discussion by the city council as to whether we were going to move forward with Fall Fest and different events throughout the year. And there was a rather lengthy discussion, and then there was some items to move forward. And the items to move forward was we were going to look for volunteers to chair a committee in order to have events. And at that time, we didn't know who that was going to be, and we were going to look for people who were interested in doing that. During that discussion, also, it was said, you know, maybe we should have a roundtable between planning commission members, some park members, and some council members to find out what types of things you would like to see in an event or you would like to see at a Fall Fest, just to get some ideas on the table so that everyone, you know, had participated. And so I had a chance to talk to Janet, and I said, maybe this is really a good forum in our joint meeting, since we had everyone together, that we could, you know, pose some questions and quickly go around and everyone could answer. So I told her I would start off with my favorite question, and we'll go around, and this is my kind of icebreaker question is, and then we're gonna go around, so everyone's gonna tell us what their favorite cookie is. And that's kind of like what the questions are. They're yes or no questions, and then we're getting on the table. So my idea with that was, okay, at Fall Fest, if everyone said, I'm just throwing it out, said chocolate chip, you'd be like, maybe we should sell chocolate chip cookies because there's 15 people who like them. So anyway, I thought we'd go around. So Sue, your favorite cookie?
Chocolate chip?
Chocolate chip.
Oatmeal raisin.
Oreos.
I like shortbread.
M&M.
Me?
Yeah.
Peanut butter.
Chocolate chip.
Macadamia nut.
Come on, look at me, all of them.
Good one, good answer.
It's a good
Chocolate
team
chip.
build.
Oatmeal scotchies. Chocolate chip.
All right, I'm with Dean, peanut butter. So see, so again, I figured, for some feedback for, people who want to do things like that, what would go on? So Janet has other questions that thought we would toss around. And then I'll also let her indicate that we do have, good news is we found people who are interested in looking at Fall Fest and making it happen this year. So those are all good things to put on the table. So again, this will be helping out the committee if we all kind of go around, give our opinions on different things. And Janet has a list of questions. I have a few more, but mine are more kind of fun kind of things. Not that Jen's
Mine are
aren't
fun too.
So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so the good news is that we do have two people who are willing to co-chair this. Lynn is one of them. Actually, Lynn is going to do the heavy lifting, and then the second person is Karen Fleming. So Karen is on our EDA and just recently joined that board. She's not here tonight, but we've already had a couple of meetings just to toss around some ideas. And what I thought I would do is kind of throw some of those ideas out and then get your reaction to them. We're looking at calling a meeting of the sort of organizing committee. It'll be about March 13th. I checked with Lori last night. That was the best day for her. So you'll be hearing about that, but it'd be really great to have your input on some of these things, and we'll really be able to hit the ground running. So the first question is that in the past, Fall Fest has been in September. It's been on a Saturday. It's been somewhere between, 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon or thereabouts. It's kind of been an all-day event. When Mayor Priner, myself, and Lynn and Karen met, we thought, let's make this a 3-day event. Let's do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and kind of, make it a bigger thing. And so the idea was that we would do something like a movies in the park or some sort of event on Friday night. Then we would have the usual lineup on Saturday. And then Sunday, we would close out by having the Lions doing a pancake breakfast and maybe some other related activity that they would be hosting at that time. So my first question to you is, what do you think about a 3-day event versus just the 1-day event?
Sue, aye.
That sounds fun.
Okay.
It's go big or go home.
Yes.
This is why we like Lynn being the person doing the heavy lifting. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Ron?
Oh, yeah, for it. 3 days.
And Mayor?
My concern which I didn't learn about until yesterday, was that if we do something on Friday night, usually we use that time to set up and get organized and locate where things are going to be in the park, in the parking lot and all of that. If we are using the space Friday night, then that means nothing's going to happen for the Saturday events until 5:30 on Saturday morning. That's going to be a long day for everybody. So my only concern is if that's workable or not.
Okay.
And I don't know
I
that.
think it's workable. You do a lot of your laying out beforehand. So, I mean, like Friday morning, you have it all laid out. And then if you start at 9 o'clock on Saturday, they have, say 7 to 9 to get there. So,
Okay.
So I think, okay, so then Frank, what are you thinking about this?
What's the budget? How much money do we have to spend on this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have $3,000 that the city has budgeted for this event, but the plan is that we actually will be doing some fundraising, and that will be supplementing greatly what it would cost to put this on.
Because it takes a lot of money to run a 3-day event. Takes a lot, just with security and,
Yep.
traffic control or whatever.
Yep, those are really good points, and you're right. I mean, there would
If
be
you're
some,
gonna have entertainment like music or whatever,
well, we'll get to that.
all,
Right now, there's no music on the agenda, but you're right. Yep.
Yes.
But if people want to do I'm new here, so
Yeah.
if you think that's gonna go,
well, so your Friday night is going to be a movie in the park for a family movie, so we're gonna encourage the families to come and see a movie. So that's, I mean, there's gonna be like, hopefully like popcorn and stuff like that, okay, but not huge.
So you're gonna put up a screen and
Yeah.
bring your lawn chair and sit
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
Well, that costs money too, you know?
Well,
Oh,
so,
that's been donated.
Okay, well, there, if you're cutting the cost down,
Yeah,
whatever.
and then we're gonna have some sponsorships for businesses, and then they can set up for free on Saturday and, you know, showcase their business. And I really don't, I'm excited, and I don't see how we are not going to raise $10,000.
Cool.
I mean, I just, I can't imagine we won't, so.
Were you going to say something, Rob?
no, well, our last meeting, Aaron from Running Aces was in, and he was offering up some stuff,
Yep.
whether it be a dunk tank. He said that they have a projector. I think,
Minnow races.
yeah, minnow races, things like that. And maybe that's more of a Saturday thing, but I think, was it LATV that
Yep.
was going
Yeah,
to
that'll be
Yep.
Saturday.
do that? Okay, so, and if that fell through, Running
Yeah.
Aces had a projector that hasn't even been used that they said
Yeah,
they would
and then
lend to
Sunday,
us.
like Janet said, it's just closing it off with the pancake breakfast. So it's not like we're doing a ton on Sunday, we're just encompassing the whole community to come together and encouraging people to go to the pancake breakfast and just kind of, so it's not, there's not gonna be any activities of ours on, you know, Sunday, but we can advertise it as a 3-day event and have a lot of things, the car show on Saturday, just, I'm gonna work with, what is it, Midwest now, but it was Wild Dog Sports, and then Frontier. My nephew's the
Midwest Machinery.
manager, so I'm gonna see if they'll bring like some equipment so the kids can, you know, go on it. And I mean, there's just so much we can do that we aren't doing to encompass everybody, so.
I got a question, Elizabeth. The city can break the law, right? Well, but
I'm pretty sure that's a negative.
That was
Well-
a trick question.
if I'm right, the city has an ordinance that you can't be in the park after dark. So is this movie going to be
We'll have
a
to get
daytime
special
movie?
permit.
Sure, we can make a motion at city council meeting to open it?
Yep.
Well, I don't know, can you?
So the city can always take action to amend its ordinances to provide for narrow flexibility for things like publicly sponsored events, bringing the community together. That's certainly something that's within the council's authority to direct.
Well, I figured they could do it, you know, but then is that?
But your
is that
city
a-
attorney would be very pleased if you were to take official action to remedy any of those issues along the way, and to do so by resolution, so.
Well, would that, so if I came in as a baseball guy and said I'm going to have a baseball night baseball game there, does that leave us open that we did it, they can do it? Or do
So,
we always have the last say anyway, right?
you know, again, there's different processes that you can adopt, and it's really a policy question for the city council to consider about whether it wishes to create flexibility for certain parks to be used for after dark or, you know, have lighted events and things like that. And perhaps Fall Fest is a good opportunity for you to address some of those policy questions within your, you know, your parks planning work.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Barb, did you weigh in? What do you think?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
But I was wondering about providing refreshments and stuff. Do you have like those trucks that come in? Is
Yeah,
that
we'll
what-
have a couple food trucks and music on Saturday. So that we're trying to work through, but yeah, we'll have, and then the Lions sell food. We're gonna let them do their thing that they've always done, and, you know, look for some of the hot, what was the hot food truck,
Well, there was the tater tot one
Tater
that we had, but I know Ron has already checked into his favorite egg roll vendor.
so if you have a favorite, let us know. And we'll be happy to try to, you know, we're gonna try to get a petting zoo, so it's, yeah, it's
That
kinda.
was really a hit the
Yeah.
year that
Well, unfortunately,
and
Lori
Shelley.
told me that the one that we had isn't available that weekend that we're thinking. The weekend that we're thinking about is September 15th, that weekend. And I checked with Linwood today, and that is not the weekend of their Family Fun Days. That's on the 10th, so we're good there. And it's a go. I've checked with the Lions, and that's a go for them on that weekend. And I have a call into the seniors, but I just haven't heard back yet, so. And Stephen Ray, who's in the back, he's also on our. No, it's okay. He's on our park board, and park board was originally kind of implicated to sort of oversee the volunteer thing, and he was very interested in being part of this. So you certainly can come up and join this conversation and weigh in on what you're thinking about all this.
It's good to listen.
Okay.
So,
The lights out or not allowed in the park after dark didn't even occur to me. It was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know, is there alcohol involved?
There will be a beer garden.
There's a beer garden on
No
Saturday.
alcohol in the park either.
No, and we wouldn't do it for that family night anyways.
not movie night.
No.
On Saturday, we'll utilize both sides of the road, where Friday night, it will all be in the park. Saturday, we'll utilize both sides, and then Sunday, it'll just be at the community center for breakfast. So it's really only one day where we have to, worry about crossing the street.
You mentioned a car show. You had that all set up?
No, we're gonna have to get out there and advertise. Another thing is the
Because you're already
only,
behind the ball on that.
Well,
know.
so we have two fellows that have in the past volunteered to organize that, and so when we get together on the 13th, we'll be pulling them in for that. So, yeah.
Because people are already lining up what days they're gonna go to what shows. They're already, every
Yeah.
weekend's picked for something.
Yeah, I know. So maybe we'll give Rob Alley a call and just give him a heads up this is coming, so. Okay, so my next
So,
question.
Janet, so food trucks, just go around quick. What kind of food truck do you want, Sue?
Mini donuts.
Jamaican.
What did you just say?
Jamaican?
Oh, I thought you said.
I don't know, something spicy and flavorful.
No, I didn't hear the word, so I
No,
was thinking you said-
Jamaican.
I thought you were
Ron was
saying
like-
like turducken. And I was like,
A turducken.
gosh.
No, just like something like spicy or, I don't know, Jamaican or Thai, I don't know, something.
We'll do pizza.
Pizza. D&D Goodies, Asian food. They're at Arts in the Park, and they were at Cub on Saturday night, this last Saturday night. Very good food.
Yep.
Did you talk to them?
Yeah, I did.
And are they interested?
Well, he said you gotta send, you gotta let them know ahead of time, but they usually do Arts in the Park, and I thought he said they did the State Fair too, but I could be wrong on that one.
Oh, he's in the big league.
I couldn't understand it half the time.
Okay.
I was gonna say Tot Boss.
Oh, is that who was here at the last one? Is that
You
the
know,
Tater Tot guys?
it might have been, yeah.
Oh,
There's a
boy, they were really popular.
Yeah, there's a couple different, but through my daily work, I worked Hockey Day, Minnesota, had a booth there. So I did get a bunch of cards from vendors anticipating that possibly this might be happening, so I can share those with
That'd
the
be great.
committee.
Yeah.
There's about a half a dozen that were down there. And as far as like alcohol goes, I know Vanelli's that used to be out of Forest Lake, they did that one down there, and they just did the alcohol because they still have the license. So maybe that's an option. They're based out of Forest Lake, but they just do catering now and alcohol for events for maybe the Saturday.
Well, on
portion.
Saturday, the Lions usually have their, what they call a beer garden.
Okay.
It's a Bloody Mary beer garden, little fenced-off area, so
Sure.
that seems to fill that need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just an option, but yeah.
Frank?
Okay. I'm gonna say mini donuts, so you guys.
And actually, I think the Lions have a mini donut machine now, and they actually bought it for the Fall Fest, the first Fall Fest that we had to cancel, so they will be thrilled to have a chance to roll that baby out.
What kind of food do you like?
Probably should do ice
All food.
Probably should do ice cream. maybe.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, ice cream, good one.
How about Barb?
Mexican
Okay.
tacos, burritos.
We
Okay.
have room for like 12 trucks.
I know. I'm sure they're not all gonna be available
I'd have to put them all
or
in
say
a
yes, but.
draw.
Okay, so we talked about the movie in the park. One of the things that I mean, we also have some other options for Friday night, which, Lynn, you don't even know about this
Okay.
yet. So one of the other options that Aaron threw out to us is that Friday and Saturday are their last nights of racing at Running Aces. And he was willing to dedicate Friday night as Columbus night. And so the idea is that you could have, instead of movies in the park, you could have races, going to the races. There could be some sort of premium giveaway or something, and Ron has a really great idea for that, but I'm not gonna spill the beans on that yet. And then we could do movies in the park during the summertime one night, when maybe the weather's a little bit more amenable for sitting out there. But, you know, that's just an idea, so just hearing some feedback on that. One of the concerns I have is that there are some people who still are not wild about Running Aces, and I think it's really generous of them to offer that up, and I think it'd be kind of a fun, I mean, they're free, those races are free, and they're family-friendly, but what are you guys thinking about that idea for a Friday night? And then that kind of gets past Mayor Pryner's preserve about having stuff going on in the park and then having to quickly clean things up and get it ready for Saturday.
And are you talking about the horse races?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love going there, the races.
So if we did that,
All the
if we
time.
offered that up on Friday and it was billed as, you know, Columbus night and there were some, you know, premiums or giveaway or some like little games that they have where the kids could play their minnow races or whatever that is, would that be, would that be a reasonable substitute for the Friday night movie in the parks? And we could do the movie in the parks too. We could just do that like in July or something instead.
I'm obviously very like new to this discussion, but I think that sounds fun. It's something that's like more different. It's more variety. I think that's a cool idea, personally.
Guys, want to weigh in?
Run out of energy. Maybe you could bring your chickens out. We could have chicken meat.
Chicken race.
Chicken races. I have one that would win every race, so put your money on her.
Fried chicken.
Ooh, don't say that.
Mean. We're fighting.
What are you thinking about that, Rob?
I guess no comments right now.
Okay. Anybody else? I don't know. I mean, like I said, this is just something he's offered up. The whole group hasn't talked about it, so
Yeah.
it's just an idea.
The only thing, I mean, I'd like to discuss it with the committee. The only thing I'm worried about is one business is getting everybody to come there, and if you're going out and you're soliciting sponsorships and you're having other businesses give money, they might feel slighted.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
we
have to think
did
about
say any businesses that come on Saturday are only Columbus businesses. There won't be anybody outside, but I just want to think about that because I'm just thinking that if we're going to ask other people to give sponsorships and we're, you know, taking all this business to one business on that night, if the other ones might feel.
So I think it's probably, this is a good opportunity to talk about the city's role in accepting donations. So cities are permitted to accept donations from local businesses, but cities typically are prohibited from making solicitations. And so there's a distinction between citizens soliciting for a local event and the city council and the city council members individually soliciting for an event. So what I would encourage in terms of how you accept, the city certainly can accept the dollars, which is sort of a nuance in the law, right? That you could accept something but not ask for it. But when you are accepting the dollars, I think it's important to give a value to it, right? And so the city can accept in-kind donations, so things like, let's say, Running Aces wants to sponsor a Friday night event. The city would accept that by resolution, they would put a value to it, and they would do that as part of a public process. And the same thing would be true for any sort of sponsorships that were provided alongside this event. So you can think about this in a private context and then a public context. Those two things can work together, but there just needs to be some process around it.
Yep.
So are you saying then that she could go solicit? And then as long as we have a resolution saying she talked to Running Aces and they said,
Right, so citizens in their private capacity may make a solicitation for a private, publicly sponsored event. And so the way that you can think about this is that the city is sponsoring, the city is the main named sponsor of Fall Fest. And then that there is a private group of citizens that is making requests to support this entity. Now, we can talk about sort of how we set that up legally, and that's probably a broader conversation about how dollars are accepted. But it's, I think, essential to say that the city itself is not making a request for the dollars. It is simply accepting dollars that have been donated by local businesses.
And for someone like Lynn to go out, she's on the planning commission, as long as she's not an elected official, she's still a private citizen.
So when there's a distinction in the case law and in the advisory opinions from the AG's office that talks about the public process versus the private process. And so Lynn, as a private citizen, not as a member of the Planning Commission, can make that request. I think that request becomes more difficult for the members of the City Council because it's very difficult for you to take off one identity and put on another. And so for that reason, you know, we talk about this a little bit in the conflict context. And so, you know, I would advise in this role that we have those members of the public who have volunteered to be a part of this that are not in a City Council position doing much of the build out of that sponsorship idea.
Oh, good, because that's how I had it envisioned too.
Very good.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the car show. Again, there's two, Denny Peterson used to organize it. He kind of handed off the torch to Rob Alley and his brother starts with an R.
Randy, I think.
Randy, yeah. And they were all over it, and I think they did it in 2019, and then we closed down shop on it. So unless something's really changed, I do think that they have the network and they're willing to organize it. And so is there any idea, any strong feelings for or against car show? We still want to do it? It was a big popular part of it? Everybody? Yep. Okay.
I think that has been popular.
Okay.
Plus, I know Frank has a nice car. If he's around that weekend, he'll bring it.
So, yeah, Frank, put this on your calendar, the 15th. Is that going to work?
Janet, do you remember that Tom Olson?
Yep, and Tom does too. Yep, there's a number of them. And they get a few boats, they get a few like snowmobiles and tractors and things like that in there too, so.
I was gonna ask if we would accept that, because I think it was Mark Daly, he brought some antique snowmobiles
Yeah.
and some other ones.
Yeah, people liked it. I think we should, I think it's good. Okay, so then the other question I had for you was the petting zoo. So we did that one year. It was a huge success. It was a great vendor that brought up his animals from somewhere down in southern Minnesota. Unfortunately, from what I hear from Lori, that person's not available that weekend. So, but there are other ones like that. So, like the idea of the petting zoo too, also.
Oh, I think it was great. A lot of people stopped and thought it was just amazing.
Well, it was amazing to me how many children had no idea, like, what a donkey was, what a sheep, they'd never seen them, right? Like, they just didn't know. And so it was a really great educational thing for those kids that don't get exposed to animals other than dogs and cats.
And they had the safety issue, washing their hands.
Yeah, they did that really well. And, okay, so we'll still try to do that. I think I talked about the funding. So we have $3,000 that's budgeted. Typically, what that's gone for is to spray for wasps and mosquitoes, traffic control, the biffies, that kind of stuff, and that pretty much is all that the city's been typically covering, and everything else either is donations or whatever. So I think, that would still be the plan, and we'll see how successful we are at the fundraising part of it for the rest of it.
Can I ask a question? How are you going to advertise this to the residents?
So the way that we were thinking about it is we could put a save the date in our newsletter so people know up front that it's coming. We can leverage our newfound relationship with the Forest Lake Chamber of Commerce. A lot of communities around here put something in the Forest Lake Times. Certainly, we can put a thing in the community section, but some of them, like I've seen Scandia and stuff, actually take out like half-page ads. That costs money. I don't know that that's necessarily what we have to, you know, that what we should do. Running Aces will put something, would be willing to put something on their digital billboard, letting people know about it. We can put it on our own digital billboard. So I think we have quite a few ways of getting the word out. But I think especially since we're sending out the newsletter in the next 3 or 4 weeks, putting a save the date there and letting people know, I think that, because that goes to every household, I think that'll be a really good.
With that, I think we could blast it out on Nextdoor.
Yeah.
And then also like Facebook as well.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I think that in the
I'll have
past.
a campaign page, we could just
Yep.
send it out to our constituents.
Yep, and I think Lori has done that in the past, taken advantage of the social media accounts that the city has, so it's a good question. I think that's pretty much.
Bingo.
That was, oh yeah, bingo, thank you. So we had an idea, we had a suggestion that perhaps people would like to play bingo as part of this. And, you know, you can just play bingo for the sake of bingo. It doesn't have to be a gambling thing or, you know, for money or anything like that. Or you can have, you know, prizes donated or something. But Elizabeth told me that Jeff Durain is an amazing bingo caller and has done that before, which who knew that he had that talent? So what do you guys think about having bingo be part of, it could be part of the Saturday thing going on in the, you know, the community center during that time, you know, be a 2 hour or a 1 hour, whatever block of time, and whoever wants to go play bingo, they can. You can tell there's a lot
Yeah, it
of.
would fit right in with the beer garden. I mean, beer garden bingo, everybody sitting around.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have it like 10 cents a card and, you know,
Well, I was trying to avoid doing the, you know, because we do charitable gambling, but obviously the city can't do that. So I suppose if a nonprofit wanted to do that as part of their fundraising, they could certainly do that if they were going to provide all that and apply for a license. So I'm not saying we can't do that. But if we were going to do it just as a city-sponsored event, we couldn't have money be involved.
So I'm wondering if maybe the Columbus PTO could do it.
That's
I
what,
know my wife
that's what I'm
volunteers for
thinking.
that
You know-
one at Columbus.
You know, if you can get Rochelle to get them, because they always are invited to the organizing, and it's been hard to get them at the table.
Sure.
And so if you can get her to get somebody at our organizing meeting, that would be fantastic. And if they did it, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, I think they just had a lot of changing of hands, like with COVID and everything, kind of similar to this. So
Yeah.
there's a new gal that's running it.
Yeah.
or
No, I
kinda
think that'd be
leading it up,
great. I mean, that's what we really want. We want organizations like that to have, like, come to the table and say, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna organize this. We're gonna provide the people to staff it. We'll, you know, whatever. And then we just, you know, we just coordinate all of it and then put the word out.
Yeah.
You know, there's another one, the Forest Lake Athletic Association runs bingo games.
Yeah.
They
And, you
run-
know, they could actually do back to back. I
They
mean,
have
one
all
could do
the
it 1 hour and one
equipment
could do it
and
another
They
hour.
run it up at Cornerstone on Monday nights, and
Sure.
So we could ask them too.
Service Bureau, right?
yeah, I don't know if the Youth Service Bureau does it, but
I think they were they doing the charitable gambling at Running Aces?
They do pull tabs.
Yeah, oh, is that what it was? Oh, that'd be fun too.
Well, they used to have a big bingo night there.
there's got to be a prize.
Well, they can. All we want them to do is come in, do what they do,
Yeah,
and clean up in
even if
their.
it's only a couple bucks.
Yeah.
can't play bingo, to play
Yep.
bingo.
Well, it sounds like people like the idea of bingo. We'll just have to figure out how to do it. Is there anything else? Any other great ideas that we didn't think about?
So I know in past years, they had done that like closest to the pin in the park with golfing, you know, with like a 9-iron or something. I won it the one year, it was like $200. Pretty
Who ran
cool.
that? Do you know?
I think it was Mark Daly. They were kind of like doubled up running the car show plus doing that at the same time, if I recall. But it was pretty early on in Columbus Fall Fest
Did
days.
it cost money to get in?
Yeah, it was like $5 or something, and then they had a pot at the end, you know, and the closest two won it. They had someone measuring it, but it's pretty neat.
Well, and I know like the Lions have, you know, in the past, they've done face painting for kids and like what they do with their hair when they get it all those neon colors and sparkles and stuff in there. And I think the PTO in the past has also done the bouncy house, or at least sometimes has done the bouncy house. The kids really like that. So, I mean, I think there's some things that we've had in the past that, you know, we can see if those organizations are still willing to sponsor it. If not, maybe somebody else would be willing to do it. And then, of course, we have like the, you know, the extraction demonstration that the fire department does with a smashed up car to show how they use the jaws of life to get people out of there. They have the flag burning ceremony from the Boy Scouts. They usually have some safety thing from Connexus or Excel about high wire lines and that kind of stuff. They usually, we've had like the watershed districts out doing educational stuff on water stuff. So I think all those things will still be on the docket, so.
Is there any thought about craft vendors or anything like that?
Well, we'll hopefully target some of the people that live in Columbus that do direct sales and crafts, and we'll have them. The key to it is they're gonna have to live in we wanna keep this a Columbus business. So any crafters and direct sales and stuff like that, I want them to live in Columbus. I just, this is our chance to showcase us,
Yeah.
so.
I know the seniors did some, and that's where we'll have to wait until I get in touch with them, but they had, you know, as part of their silent auction, they had some craft items that they'd sell, and they had some baked items and things like that, so sometimes organizations like that will pull that kind of thing together too. Okay,
But can we use our newsletter, not only to announce that it's going to happen, but then to ask for,
Yes.
if you're a knitter, if you're a crocheter, if you have maple syrup or whatever it is, if you're interested, give me a
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
And put your number.
The trouble you're gonna run into, Columbus is the sixth largest city in the state, but 4,000 people.
Yep.
You don't have a lot of people to have
You'd be surprised.
okay,
You'd be surprised. I do vendor events all the time.
okay. I have no.
And it's like,
experience.
oh, yeah, you live in Columbus. Yep, you know, so.
Yeah, like you make a good point, like go to Arts in the Park up at Forest Lake on
Yeah.
Tuesday nights and. a
Yeah,
lot
you
of
go
those
down
people are
there and it's
local.
like, oh, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
so.
But,
Well, then go there
You
early
might
in
be
the
right,
season and start
Frank.
scoping out Columbus people.
Exactly.
okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Elizabeth, anything
curds.
else? Any more
Oh,
questions?
that's right, yeah.
What
I'll
flavor
make
of
that
ice cream do we like? Or anything?
So, not to keep rolling, sorry, but I know the seniors had done like an ice cream social deal towards the end of the afternoon in the fire hall.
No, that was
in the
actually
past,
us.
Or was that was you?
That
or
was the city. That was
Okay.
the city.
Sure.
The seniors did their chili feed, and then they did a silent auction.
Okay.
And that's, you know, that was my call into Pam today to say, are you guys still interested in doing this, or, you know, or anything that's related to Fall Fest? So we'll see what they say. Their group is kind of splintered into smaller groups, and so I don't know if they're still interested in doing that or not.
Yeah,
but-
and then I think the mayor and I can reach out to the fire board about having all the airboat and all that stuff set up outside.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, I told you guys we could pull this off. We just needed some
Not a
good
problem.
cheerleaders.
So does everyone agree on the date, first of all? And you agree on the concept? And the next thing will be,
I mean, with the date, I did research other surrounding communities' events so that we were kind of staying away from everybody else. So that's how we came to that weekend.
Did you check out, and I don't know that it would even conflict, but the Heydays in North Branch?
It's the
That
first
weekend?
weekend of September.
Oh, it's the first, not Labor Day weekend, but the next weekend?
Correct, yep.
Okay,
And that's the weekend that Linwood is having theirs too, is the 9th or 10th or whatever.
I think Scandia does theirs the same as Heydays,
okay.
Taco Days.
But mark my words, there will be conflicts that we didn't think about that
Yeah, but it-
crop up. That just is how it
Yeah,
goes.
I went through and that was the weekend with the least amount of conflicts from all the other
Yep, okay,
items, so.
good.
all right.
Right. Thank
Any
you.
planning commissioners have anything to report other than what we've discussed tonight?
I have nothing. Barb?
I have something.
Mr. Chair?
We're going to have one more meeting in March, right, the 15th? And the Planning Commission has to elect a chairman at that time. So just to let everybody know on the Planning Commission, that'll be my last night, I believe, and
You're not going to stick around for the public hearing in April? Come on.
might come to it. Might be in the audience, but, no, but whoever, think about it, who to nominate, and as Elizabeth would tell you, every January, we elect, it can be the same chairman, but you elect a new chairman every year. So anyway, think about it, and whoever gets it, I have some templates on how I was able to screw it up, so if you need them, I'll help you out. But we need somebody, so someone's gonna, and if
And-
I'm right, you gotta be nominated, so.
And did we announce the newest member of the Planning Commission? That's going to be joining us on the 15th, right?
Yes, she'll be joining us on the 15th, yes. But,
We talked, it was at the city council meeting when it was announced last week, but I don't know that all the planning commissioners know about it.
So the newest member who's been appointed is Judy Huntosh, and she lived in Forest Lake for 50 years, retired, and moved to Columbus.
And she was on the EDA in Forest Lake for like 20 years, and
And she owned Flyaway
Flyaway Gymnastics.
Gymnastics Studio.
Good.
So she's been around. She's a business owner. She's a mother. She's on all the commissions in Forest Lake. She was on the park board till it was abolished, on their EDA, and she's,
Your EDA too.
yeah, and she'll be on the EDA here also.
Yep.
She volunteered for that. So as soon as she gets back from vacation, she can hit the ground running,
Yep.
I hope. All right,
Elizabeth,
anyone?
I have a question. Did Connor come up with the schedule for the liaison?
yes, and we'll circulate that.
Okay, thanks.
And is there anything else from any council members who would like to say anything?
No.
Yeah,
No, sir.
pretty quiet. Frank, anything from you?
Just a quick update on the park master plan since the park board met last night. We're making some progress. I think we had a great discussion. We chose a vision statement for our master plan, and we'll be meeting again in April. And I just wanted to make note of that, and we'll keep moving forward.
All right. How about number 11, a planning and zoning permit tech report? And I can't read the screen. Go ahead.
That would be me. I wanted to announce to you all that tonight is actually going to be my last meeting. I have accepted another opportunity and resigned my position here effective March 10th. So I wanted to let you all know and say I really enjoyed working here and getting to know all of you. And just thank you for everything you've done.
No, thank you.
Come on.
Well, thank you for being here with us.
That's sad.
You're going to miss the big meeting. Oh, no.
Yeah. I'm gonna miss all the stories. It's never a dull moment.
All right.
Well, good luck in your new adventure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck. Or not luck, it's good fortune, right?
Good fortune.
So,
We're gonna miss you.
Yeah, we are.
oh, well, that's too bad for us.
Yeah, what the heck?
So, is there anything else from anyone else? We're getting down to the end here. All right, would someone make the motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Rob?
And a second?
I'll second.
So it's moved and seconded. I'll call for the vote. I'll start with Sue.
Sue, I.
Bethany, aye.
Ron, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
Lynn, I.
Frank, aye.
Barb, aye.
And Jesse, aye. Our meeting is adjourned.